Okay, hi everybody again. So at this stage, I'm going to show you how to laser cut your keyring mold that you just sent through, or you will be sending through to the laser cutter. Now at this stage, what you need is some timber. So if I just rewind it a little bit, you'll see that what I'm using is a 3mm MDF, which stands for medium density fiber board. Now, it's a manufactured board, it's an engineered board, which means is they've taken a tree and they've basically chopped it up, or they've ground it up into 10 little fibers, and then they've glued it back together again into one sheet of wood. That's really good and beneficial for the laser cutter in particular because there's no knots or grain or anything in it that could potentially disrupt the laser or confuse the laser. It's perfectly flat as well, so the laser cutter consistently knows where to cut and what to do. So we can use this 3mm MDF because it cuts through 3mm fairly easily, as long as it's on a slow speed. So what you do is you put the piece of MDF into the top left-hand corner of the laser cutter bed, as you'll see in a second. And the laser cutter works best in the top left-hand corner, its strongest point. It's the point closest to the laser itself, so where the laser comes from underneath. So it's got the most power in the top left. So that's why we always do it in that point. So what you do is you put the piece of timber into the laser cutter, and then I don't really you can see what I'm doing here. There's a little brass probe. I'm going to pull that brass probe out. Usually you shouldn't need to do this. It's being jammed a little bit, so there was a spring on it which brings it down, but unfortunately the spring isn't working anymore, so you just have to pull out the little brass probe first, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click on autofocus. Well, before I press on autofocus, you just need to drag the laser over a little bit until you see that red little light. It's not that red light isn't the laser beam, that's just a red light telling you where the laser is going to be. So you basically just need to make sure that red beam is over the material, and then what you're going to do by just basically gently pulling it forward and across, and it's over the timber. And then we're going to press autofocus, and what autofocus does is it brings up the material on the bed to touch the brass probe, so that the laser will know exactly where the material is. So basically it just brings it up in line. So the autofocus button is this one. So if I watch in a second, you'll see me press it. And then the material should then, the bed, which is the bit where you rest the material on, rises up, and you'll see it touch the probe in a second, and it will go down a little bit. There you go, just so that the material doesn't get in the way. Now, you have to make sure the lid is closed because there's a little sensor here, and if it gets opened at any point, the laser will cut out. So if at any point during the laser cutting it gets opened, you need to make sure it doesn't and it stays shut, otherwise it won't work. So close the lid, and then I'm going to press F1, which just means it goes back. So it's in the focus mode at the minute. So if I press F1, it just means back, and then hopefully you should see the name of the file that you're cutting just here. Okay, so if you press back first, and then what you do is you turn on the extractor. And what the extractor does is it removes all the smoke that's in the laser cutter, because the laser cutter burns through the material very precisely. So it creates smoke when it burns through. So the extractor extracts the smoke and it filters it, and it then pumps out clean air. So you need to make sure the extractor's on. If the extractor isn't turned on, then the laser cutter doesn't work. Again, it's got another sensor around about here, which means that it won't work if it's not. It senses if it's on or not. And you'll see at least 4 blue dots on the fan here. And if that doesn't work, it means that the fan's blocked, and you'll need to. I'll need to change the filter for the laser cutter to work. Okay, so again, you'll see the dots in a second. Come on, there you go, 4 dots. And then what you do when you're happy is wait a few seconds and then just press start, and you'll see it then starting to cut out your design of your keyring design or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, now you'll see it's going really slowly because in order for it to cut all the way through the keyring, it needs to be on a really slow speed, so it's got time to burn all the way through. It's also on a very strong power, so it's actually on a very high power, 100% power and about 0.7% speed. So it's got the power to go all the way through, but it's got the slow speed, so it's got the time to burn all the way through. When I go to the engraving section, I'll fast forward the video. When you get to the engraving section, let's have a look at this. You'll notice it going much quicker. Now, that's the engraving bit. Now, the engraving section, because it doesn't need to burn all the way through the material, it's just burning the surface of the material. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be as slow. It can go a lot quicker. Now, I have also put the speed up, so I've got it 100% speed, but I've also got 100% power. So it's still got quite a bit of power to burn into the surface, but it's not got enough time to burn all the way through. So I've gone for 100 and 100, and then, but you can play with the speed settings, and you can play with the power settings depending on how deep you want the engraving to be. Okay, so that's it for the laser cutter, and then the next stage you'll see that the mold has been cut out ready for casting on the pewter caster. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.